Elite Dangerous is 10 years old by now, and while it is an achievement worth celebrating, there's also a flip side. All good things must come to an end. In recent times, we've been seeing more and more games closing their doors. Games like Redfall's closure, The Crew getting killed by Ubisoft and then demanding that you destroy every copy you own, Concord releasing, flopping like a dead fish for about 2 weeks, then getting flushed down the drain, or most recently Anthem, another colossal failure, getting its final days marked on the calendar. And while surely Dangerous won't be getting the axe anytime soon, but will we see 15 or maybe 20-year anniversary before developers sunsets the game? Well, only time will tell, but one thing is absolutely certain. Eventually, it too will close down. So then, what will happen to Elite Dangerous when there's no more official support, no more servers? With Stop Killing Games initiative, I think it's a good time to ask the important questions of what will happen to a game like Elite Dangerous at the end of the line. Since today's topic is a rather important one, I decided to scrap my first 2 draft scripts for this one with my bombastic usual, or as some would call it, annoying screeching for a more monotone presentation. So here's the reality. Elite Dangerous is an always online game, and without internet connection to official servers, you simply can't play the game. Well, that is exception being the tutorial scenarios. Thus, if developers one day for whatever reason decide to drop the support, as things are right now, well, all of us would be left with a digital paperweight. And this is the topic I wanted to look into. What will happen to Elite? What the company has to say about this? What, if any, comments they want to share? What we as customers are entitled to? And what can we expect at the end of the line? And I know some of you are probably yelling at the screen right now, "Oh, Frontier promised to release some source code or something?" Yes, all of this I looked into, collected information and investigated, so that whoever in the future decides to take over the baton for this whole thing, well, you'll have at least some sort of a jumping off point to stop Elite Dangerous from being killed. So then, let's begin with topic 1 at the time. So then, why do this? Why investigate and look into the game's final days when it's still alive and hopping? Honestly speaking, I can't believe that I even have to spell it out for some, people. Isn't it obvious? Elite Dangerous for me is a big part of my gaming history, so I care about it on a personal level. Elite also has a lot of really good things about it, both in a personal manner as well as in a critical view. So I find it important to save it for both educational and entertainment value. Additionally, game preservation is extremely important for both history and education. And finally, Elite Dangerous was sold as a product, and as a customer, I reasonably expect the game I purchased, which at no point was sold to me with a subscription fee or with an expiration date, to continue working in a reasonable manner. It's only a fair expectation. You pay money for a product and it works, or at least you can be reasonably expected that you can fix it. You know, like a bicycle, for example. However, if none of these reasons moved you or even struck a bell with you, well, I guess you are either a corpo rat bastard, or you are a consumer that also hates to be treated fairly, or the whole concept of consumer rights is just alien to you. Or you simply hate games and gaming in general. Either which case, these are the only reasons I really see anyone actively lobbying against something like this. Yes, but why Elite Dangerous specifically? Well, that's simple. I've been covering the game for years, and I know it pretty well. And Elite Dangerous and Frontier, well, they have made no concrete assurances for the future of the game, and that's leading us into... Like I stated before, Elite Dangerous is an always online game, and it will become just as playable at the end of the line as it is right now if you unplug the internet. In fact, in the official TOS and EULA rules that Frontier provides in the point 2.8 specifically, they state, "You acknowledge that the online features are provided by Frontier at its discretion and may be terminated or otherwise discontinued by Frontier at any time." So here are the 3 very important takeaways from the whole end user license. First, Elite Dangerous according to the Frontier can be killed off at any point. Second, in EULA there is no mention of any kind of grace period for announcements for such actions. So we're left assuming that any day, at any time, this can happen with or without any notice. And third, EULA also doesn't mention anything about end-of-life plans, refunds, or other measures that would be taken at that point. Again, leaving us to only assume the worst. You get nothing and you'll be happy. Now that said, I'd be ecstatic if I was missing something or Frontier would do something extra. However, in recent times, for example, Ubisoft has been mocked for their executives spouting nonsense like, "You need to get comfortable owning nothing." And so from customers more and more you start to hear the quote of, "If buying is not owning, then piracy is not stealing." But the point is simple, Frontier Developments is a rather corporate, publicly traded company. So tell me, how much trust do you put in Frontier as a whole that they would do the right thing at the end, and not just kill off Elite Dangerous as soon as it's not profitable enough by simply flipping a switch, leaving the game unplayable? And while I dearly adore community space dads at times with their soft hearts, we as customers should not simply hope that things would sort themselves out. After all, if Elite sells itself like any other game, has no subscription fees or any expiration date, then it's not a service, and I as a customer can expect the product to reasonably work. However, that's not the case, and with a flip of a switch the game can be bricked, and I can't reasonably expect to fix it. Now how's that any fair to the customer? And so, as things are right now, Elite Dangerous will be killed. Unless something is done, and I for one will sleep a lot sounder with some kind of assurance in place. Now let's take a moment and turn to me, the mean old space Latvian in the room. Why is Yamiks doing this in the first place? Though I already mentioned that I find Elite important in historical and educational as well as overall entertainment value, and those alone would be good enough reasons to give a flying duck, because I've been one of the still active creators in the community with some sizable audience, well, either which case, it'd be remiss of me to shirk the responsibility and stay idly by as my and my fellow customer rights are being, well, shall we say, taken advantage of. Now, I've said this several times, but remember, my loyalty is to you. Now, granted, Yamiks has also been a very, very vocal critic, or as some redditors and forum dads would say, a hater of anything that Frontier does, or whatever. Still, this topic, like most other ones, I find very important to raise awareness of. Now, fact of the matter is, none of my creator or streamer peers have bothered to raise concerns about this. So then, once again, Yamiks, the negative bastard who hates the game, the developers, hell, their pets as well, or whatever, has chosen to fly in the face of the company and the status quo. Again. And be the leading light for the game he finds worthy. Okay, I played up the whole pompous prick there for you, and I know just how arrogant that sounds, I really do. But then again, if I wasn't the only one ready to trudge the muck to ruin relations with, say, the company or the army of white knights, well, perhaps I wouldn't need to, if I wasn't the only one. See, I choose to ruin these good relations or public perception to get results. More than anything, it's about the history, it's about preservation, it's about the fun we have, it's about customer rights, and more importantly, it's just plain fair to expect the game that you and me purchased to simply not get killed. Elite Dangerous must live, and that's why I'm doing it. That's why I've dug up whatever information I can find, attempted some amateurish journalism, and gathered whatever I can here, so that you too can simply pick up the baton and save Elite Dangerous. And to those snarky comments saying, well, what the hell are you on, Yamiks? Elite is not dying or need your saving. Are you sure about that? You as well as I know very well how all these live service games end up. And even if the end day won't come for Elite Dangerous for, let's say, another decade or so, well, such pro-consumer movements like Stop Killing Games is enough proof that we care about what happens to our games, to art, to our history, to this wonderful hobby. And though I know it's just a few more days left for the European Citizens Initiative, please, if you haven't gone and signed it, please do. And those of you who have already, thank you! Thank you for signing it. You make me so fucking proud. But come on, Yamiks, what about that promise from back in the day about source code or something? Yes, I know, but first we need to do the due diligence as wannabe journalists and simply go ask Frontier what they have to say in response. And so I prepared the following message, as you can see it here, and sent it out to the following sources for comment. Arthur Ptolemy, the current, or rather used to be, community manager for Elite Dangerous. At the time of writing this message, he had not yet announced his upcoming departure from Frontier, but I thought it was worth sending the message any case. So then next was New, another community member that would take over for Arthur in the meantime. Then I threw the same message over for the official press email as well, and for good measure I sent over a support request for the customer support as well. In addition, I also sent the same message to Zach, the brand manager and the old community manager for the company. Oh, and I also dropped a Reddit message to the current active community manager there as well. Oh, and even though I have a few developer public contacts laying about, I chose to simply not use those and rather use the appropriate channels instead. Additionally, I could have used my fellow creator streamer peers to maybe help out with contacting things, but again, that feels a bit underhanded. Now, most of these messages I sent over at the start of the month, on the 4th of July, and now it's time to take a look at the responses over 2 weeks later, which I think is an ample time for a simple email reply. None. Yeah, zero response. I genuinely thought that at least customer support, which is possibly the best part of the company, would say something. But nope, not a single one of those sources over 2 weeks' time bothered to reply. Well, come on, Yamiks, what did you expect? You've been calling them names, hated on their games, been all around a massive prick. I was giving them benefit of the doubt still. I guess I naively held out hope. But seems that nothing has changed since before Odyssey release. Well, long story short, back in 2020, Yamiks requests a new expansion's review copy for a review. Frontier denies it, which would be fair enough. However, they claim that it was not because of any other reason, but that they were running out of digital keys. Obviously, Yamiks proceeds to call out this duplicitous claim, then Frontier apologizes, which fair enough, and revises their statement saying that, well, Yamiks is a prick, so they have no interest in engaging with him. Again, fair enough, now that's much better. But there you go. Also, it's pretty interesting that I asked back then what would change their opinion in the matter, and I received this answer. You expressed that you'd like to know what changes you would need to make in order to be considered for further supporting your work. Removal of any videos containing derogatory comments regarding Frontier staff and teams, and a commitment to avoid such content in future. When creating content around Elite Dangerous, to refrain from using controversial subjects as joke material, which could be offensive to the wider community. This includes, but is not limited to, jokes about abortion, sexuality, gender, race, religion, etc. So then, even though back in the day they claimed I'm not blacklisted or whatever, the silence kinda speaks otherwise. Regardless, still, don't get me wrong, I don't begrudge them for their decision. Hell, I even expect it in response. So then, moving on to today's topic, if I lacked any kind of professionalism, I could have easily asked my fellow creators to send in these questions on my behalf. You know, doing a little bit of sneaky stuff, but I believe being upfront and forward. Now, while I only can speculate as to why Frontier is unwilling to engage with me today, well, frankly, it's hard not to call it cowardly. Especially when it pertains to questions about the customer rights and the game's future. Again, what did you expect being you? Honestly, nothing. I honestly had no expectations. Okay, fine, that's a little bit of a lie there, sorry for that. I wanted to see Frontier come out swinging for the home runs. With Stop Killing Games movement gaining mass notoriety, it would have been such a great win for Elite Dangerous, for Frontier, for the customers, to simply have announcement and reassurance to everyone. We will have an end-of-life plan, and unlike all the other trash live service games, this one would live on. You paid for it, and you own it. We value our customers and show the rest of the industry how to be a proper developer. I really thought this could have been such an easy PR win, especially if someone as critical as me were to report on it. I really wanted to see some good news, finally. But no. Sad that given the chance to elaborate, the company is keeping silent. And this would be even sadder if it's done purely of who asked the questions in the first place. But, you know, that's just my personal but rather strong suspicion as to the reason why. So then, to any of my peers, creators, streamers who are willing to join in on this. Now, it can be even you just watching right now. Write to the company and ask these questions. Maybe you'll get better luck. But as is. The message then remains the same. Beyond the fact that Frontier can turn off the servers one day abruptly without any assurance for end-of-life plan, it seems Elite Dangerous is going to be killed as easily as this. And that is not alright with me. Oh, but hold on, what about that old promise from way back? Like most people, I heard that Elite would release some source code or server stuff or something when they stop supporting the game. Yeah, you know, I heard that too, but tell me, can you actually find where that quote was made? Can you actually find the evidence? Because that's real ammunition. Well, guess what? Yamiks did the legwork again that no one else cared to do. And yes, I know just how arrogant that sounds, but until one of you actually does better job than I do, well, I won't be able to retire. So yes, I found it. I found the source of this claim. Back in 2014, just before Elite Dangerous was released and was still in beta, rather suddenly came announcement from Frontier that the game would switch from offline with multiplayer to always online. I bet that there are a few people still mad about that Kickstarter promise getting broken. Still, back then Elite would release newsletters as well, which were still received today. However, the archive of the old newsletters, well, now those are completely now wiped from existence. Yep, you can see where this is going. And so, after scouring different parts and sources, a little while back I found where this promise of end-of-life plan was made. Now, if you're an avid viewer, you might remember a little video I made with the same Stop Killing Games title before the movement became a thing, where I tried to simply contact the developers of Lemniscate, a game that Frontier published and was sunsetting at the time. I was fighting for that little game's right to not be bricked as well, and during the research of it, I included the quote I found here too. And this seems to be the only time Frontier has addressed the problems of always online games as a service in newsletter 50. What is Frontier's plan when the servers shut down? We do not plan on shut the servers down, but understand, it is a reasonable question. We're at the beginning of the game and not the end, and are focused on creating a game that we hope would be played for many years in the future. We do plan to take regular archives of the game and the servers to preserve the game for the future. Could the server code be released publicly someday when the servers are shut down? Yes. This is something we would do if, for whatever reason, we cannot keep the game going. And there it is! There's the only time Frontier Developments has addressed and expressed anything about end-of-life plan. I wish that this would be something that we could trust in. However, in order to find this old newsletter, I had to use Wayback Machine. Because since 2015, for one or the other reason, Frontier has scrubbed and deleted majority of their newsletters from their website, which does not instill trust to say the least. Additionally, this is something that Mr. Braben, then CEO of Frontier, had promised. However, it's been over 10 years since. So tell me, how confident are you in that promise? Now, I'd love nothing more for Frontier to just prove me wrong, but I gave them ample chance to reiterate the same points. But here we are. The best we got, the last time Frontier actually communicated anything about end-of-life plan, was now since deleted old newsletter. So then to you, Elite Dangerous community, never let them forget about this. You see, I'm skeptical on this because, well, remember that pay-to-win ship selling debacle from last year that pissed me off so much and I criticized them because of so much? Well, in the very same newsletter at the very end, there's this. Was this because offline players are less likely to get involved in microtransactions? Is this just about the money? No, we've been clear and consistent. This is about the game experience. I have always been against pay to win. In a game like Elite Dangerous, there are a great many opportunities we could have taken already that would have amounted to pay to win, but we have chosen not to. The whole issue comes down to what the vision is of the game we're making and whether people trust us to make the right decisions. We made this decision with the heavy hearts, but for the right reasons. David Braben. So yeah, like I said, how much stock are you willing to put in that old 2014 promise? If Braben himself was very much against perverting the game with pay to win. Yet those at the helm of the company right now seem to not have any qualms in breaking that ideal. We have to put pressure on Frontier to provide an end-of-life promise, and not as some old offhand comment. Elite Dangerous deserves not to be killed. Demand fair treatment. So then here we are, with Stop Killing Games joining all the gamers in unison, asking to be treated better, having customer rights respected. If you purchase a game, well, you should own it, and it should be playable or at least reasonably repairable after official support has been dropped. The programmed obsolescence that live service games today run on are anti-consumer, if not unlawful. More closer to home, Elite Dangerous being in the same boat as many always online games as a service are not services. They do not provide the customer with any kind of information of when the so-called service is supposed to end, with, expiration date, or borderline unlawful EULAs excusing bad practices. You acknowledge that the online features are provided by Frontier at its discretion and may be terminated or otherwise discontinued by Frontier at any time. Oh, and if there's anyone out there who wants to defend the company with a line like this, well, actually, you're buying a license, a permission slip to play the game, not the game itself. Get out of here. Go join Pirate Software and Ubisoft in your race to the bottom, please. I admit, I started this whole thing with a bizarre, naive hope that I would be proven wrong, that Frontier would reply to my inquiries with a simple,
"Oh, that old promise? Oh, yeah, we're keeping it. Don't worry, we'll even make it official in the public EULA and all that stuff. Don't worry about it."
You know how cool that and bright of a contrast would have been riding against the industry, nonsense and garbage companies doubling down, even lobbying against Stop Killing Games movement and basically all customers? But no, that's not what they did. So then what we're left at this point is one old quote from the main man of Frontier, David, having promised something 10 years ago. And that's the best we got. Now, I've done my best to raise awareness for Elite Dangerous. Well, because no one else before me is bothering to raise enough stink. But I'm just one single Latvian spouting obscenities in my little corner. So now, it's up to you to continue. Customers, Elite Dangerous fans, haters, enjoyers, the community, to demand fair and better treatment. And to my fellow creators, streamers, influencers of all walks, do not be silent. Demand fairness, demand end-of-life plan. Hell, beg if need be for Elite Dangerous to not be ruthlessly and callously having its brains blown out without a warning or sound. Because Elite Dangerous, like many live service games, deserve to live and be reasonably playable centuries from now on when all of us are gone. Let's not let Elite, even if it is 5, 10, maybe 20 years from now on, not be slaughtered and simply never to be playable again. And don't you worry, I would voice the same sentiment for all the games out there, starting with probably the games I covered before Elite Dangerous, PlanetSide 2 and Tribes Ascend. Let's not kill games. And so, if you haven't already, go sign the European Citizens Initiative for Stop Destroying Video Games, for games and gaming to do better, for customer rights to get recognized. And so, let's do our part and fight for better tomorrow!